you're not blowing your money and making foolish decisions without at least considering the consequences. And honestly, maybe the conclusion you draw from this is that I don't want to go to a casino. That's another possibility. All right, so this is all on my website. If you go to tedcan.com. All right, this assignment does not involve GeoGebra, so it's all Google Sheets. All right, you could do it on Excel if you want, but I've kind of tailored it for the instructions for Google Sheets. My thinking on that is Google Sheets is free. It's accessible everywhere. A lot of folks have this thinking that so is Excel, but it only seems like it's free because maybe the devices that you have access to just happen to have it on it. But at some point it was paid for, right? And like you're entitled to, if you don't have Excel, you're entitled to student accounts. If you go through Microsoft, instead of paying for the entire suite that costs a few $100, if you identify yourself as a student, they give you the student rate, which is like $14.99. So you could actually get the entire Microsoft suite for your home computer.
When you log in the device, there's the login, have the option for you to download the Microsoft.
Oh, they do? Okay. All right. So then that's easy enough. That's even better. All right. So go to Technology Assignments and select on the one that says Tech B Games of Chance, Roulette. All right. So that's where we're at. So the way the game of roulette works, I got to kind of address this part of it first. It's really just the idea that you're putting money on an outcome, all right? And different tables have different rules. Usually there's a minimum bet involved, and so that minimum bet kind of drives your decision making, because sometimes you don't even sit down at the table if you're like, oh, the minimum bet is $50. You're like, well, I only came with $200. I wanted to play for a little while. I could be out of this thing after 4 spins of the wheel. Forget it, But then there are other tables that have minimum bets of like $5. Right? Depends on the time of day. In the prime time hours, the minimum bets are always higher. But if you go there at like 3:30 in the morning, they're usually a little bit lower. Right? So what happens is, you place a bet on a certain outcome, and then the dealer will spin a ball around the wheel, and then it's going to land in one of the slots. One of those slots corresponds with the outcome or set of outcomes that are on the table. All right. So that outcome, if it corresponds with what you selected, you would win. It depends on what you bet, though. All right. So you could bet on a single outcome, which is a straight up bet. So let's say I just put my chip on the number 12. They spin the wheel, the number 12 comes up, I will win 35 times the amount that I wagered, right? Which is really great if I put a large bet on 12. But there's a 1 in 38 chance that a single number 12 is going to come up, right? So 35 times the amount of my wager sounds wonderful, but the fact that it's only going to happen 1 in 38 times, that's kind of like a little bit of a buzzkill, all right? So now you also consider, you put $1 down, for example. You're going to win 35 new dollars, so you walk away with $36 because you always get your bet back with roulette. Right? That's wonderful, but for something that's such a rare occurrence to happen, and for you to only get $35, that's really not much of anything. Right? Now you put $100 down on it, and you just made your weekend. So like that's great news. You just got $3,500. Awesome. The problem is, you're way more likely to lose that $100 wager than you are to win the $3,500. So what a lot of people will do is say, okay, well, I'll just keep putting $100 wagers down until I win. All right, I'll just do that over and over again. So I'll put $100 down. Oh, I lost. Okay, I'll put another $100 down. Eventually that number 12 is going to come up, and when it comes up, it's going to pay me at 35 to 1. All right, so as long as you hit before the 35th spin, you'll have some kind of winning. All right. The problem is you have a 1 in 38 chance of winning, so it is conceivable that you could get out to the 38th trial before the number 12 comes up. It's also possible because probability, I mean, in a roulette sense, is independent, which means, I mean, you've all been in a situation where you roll a die a bunch of times. Like, if I want to roll the number 4 and you rolled it like 30 times and the 4 didn't come up for some reason, you're like, what the hell is wrong with this die? You know, it could be like that too. It could be 200 times before that wheel turns up a 12, in which case you just blew $20,000. All right, so obviously not an effective strategy, right? But some sort of modification to that strategy could be the way to go. So maybe you try what's called a split bet. So you're hedging your bet. You put your chip or set of chips on the line separating two numbers like 11 and 12. All right, so now if either 11 or 12 come up, then I win, but I only win 17 times the amount that I wagered. Now, put $100 down on that, I just won $1,700. I'm not complaining about that. All right. So, but you're not getting the 35 to 1. A 3-number bet. So I'd put my chip here, for example, just right here on this line below the 10. That means that I'm betting on 10, 11, or 12. All right. So if any of these 3 numbers come up, then I would win my bet. But now you can see that the payout is declining. I'm only going to win 11 times my wager. $1,100, still not bad. All right, so I have a 3 in 38 chance of winning. You do a corner bet, which is exactly what it sounds like. You put a chip right on the corner between 4 values. And so when you do that, you're indicating to the dealer that you'd like to bet on those 4 numbers. All right, you're only getting 8 to 1 though. All right, so it's declining. Still $800 for a $100 bet. All right, 5 to 1 is the 6-number bet. So I put my chip perhaps right here on the line separating 2 what they call street bets. That's the 3-number bet. So I'm indicating that I'd like to bet this street and this street at the same time. So these 6 numbers, right? So only paying at 5 to 1. But I'm increasing my chances of winning because I'm increasing the number of outcomes that are favorable. I could bet on the outside dozen or column. Right, see, it says first 12, second 12, third 12. Those are my possibilities for an outside dozen. I have this table organized horizontally just to have it fit, but these are columns even though they're organized as rows. These pay out at 2 to 1. All right, so you're roughly 1/3 of the board. So pretty decent chances that it's going to come up fairly frequently. Like if I put a number on, let's say this 2 to 1, any number in this column except for the 0 and 00. So from 3 to 36, any of these numbers, if they come up by putting a chip here, I win 2 to 1. So if I put $100 down, I'll get $200 new dollars. So I walk away with $300. All right. Then you also have the even money bets. And those pay 1 to 1. That's this bottom row here. So 1 to 18, even, black, red, odd, 19 to 36. When people think of roulette, they usually think of red and black, you know, betting on red, betting on black. Those pay at 1 to 1. All right, so roughly 50-50. It's not. It's a little bit off because of the 0 and 00. Those aren't red or black. So if those come up, guaranteed if you went to a table and put your life savings down on red, like you go to that table and you went to that table because you saw on the board, because they keep a history, you saw on the board that the last 30 outcomes were all black. And you're like, well, red's coming up now. So you put your life savings on red, guaranteed either 0 or 00 is coming up. Like that's just the way the fates work, right? Slash the way the magnet in the roulette that's controlled by a casino that they deny exists works. So those are different kinds of wagers, but who's to say that you got to limit yourself to just one of those wagers? Maybe I put a chip on 15, but then I also put a chip on a 2 to 1. So that if the number 15 comes in, then that's a big win because I'll get the 35 to 1 for just the fact that the 15 came in, but then I'll also get 2 to 1 for the fact that it's in that column. That's what we call hedging your bet, right? You've probably heard that term before, but what you're doing is you're sacrificing a little bit of the payout in order to increase your chances of winning, right? So in this case, what we're doing is we're saying, all right, chances of me getting a 15, not good. Chances of me getting in this column, better, a lot better, all right? So maybe I don't get the 15, but I hit one of these values in the 3 to 36. And so what that will do, potentially, is just give me my wager back, all right? So we come up with a type of bet that allows me to just get my wager back in the event that I don't get the grand prize, all right? So that keeps me in the game so that I'm not dumping that, like in the case where I'm just putting the $100 on 15, like you go 200 trials, you lost 20 grand. But with this strategy, you hedge your bet a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit less of a payout if you hit the 15, but every time you don't hit the 15, you're not losing $100. All right, because maybe you put $20 on the 15 and the other $80 go on the 2 to 1. That's going to happen more frequently. You're at a minimum going to get your wager back. All right, more likely anyway. All right, but just some thoughts. But that's where the mathematics comes into play. Now, you have a lot of liberty when it comes to this. I will say that if you make your strategy too complicated, then this can be a less enjoyable experience. All right, so try to keep it relatively simple. But what you're going to do is develop a betting strategy for wagering $10 on a single spin of the wheel. All right, you can't wager all $10 on a single outcome, though. All right. So I'm telling you that out of all of these strategies here, you can't just say, I'm going to put $10 on a street bet or $10 on a 6-number bet. You gotta spread it out a little bit. All right, so maybe you do like I suggested before, you do $10 on 15 and then $10 on $5 on 15 and $5 on 2 to 1. What a lot of people will do, and I don't want to see an entire class doing the same thing, so vary it up definitely. But what a lot of people will do is a number and a color, because that keeps it relatively simple. All right, you can do. I've seen people do $5 on black and $5 on red, and I kick that assignment right back to them, and they say, "Nah, do it over," because that's just ridiculous. Like the best thing that you could hope to do is break even. You'll never win. All right, so if your only goal in playing roulette is killing time, then I guess that's fine, but yeah, don't do that. If you just want to play around with the even money, then do something like red and odd. All right, this way, if a red odd number comes up, you win. All right, but you would also win if just the red or just the odd. But if a red odd comes up, then you win even more. All right, so it's the double whammy. Actually, it turns out to be exactly the same, but you don't know that until you try. All right. So then we figure out the expected value, which I'll talk to you about in a minute, because I'm going to model a strategy for you, and then you'll see where I'm going with this. Google Sheets we're going to use to actually simulate playing the game for 200 spins, and then create a graph using those outcomes. It's necessary that we use Google Sheets, or at least some technology like this, because for that number of trials, you really want to have something more powerful than a graphic calculator doing it for you. And also, you really kind of sort of don't want to always restrict yourself to just using the calculator, because you're going to leave this class and down the line you'll be like, oh, I had a calculator at one point. Where did that thing go? You'll find it somewhere. It's collecting dust. The Google Sheets, Excel, things like that, you're more likely to be using that in your everyday life. All right? And then write a summary that addresses the viability of your scenario. That part's pretty easy, because all you have to do is just kind of discuss what it is that what you learned from this whole process. All right? So the way that you're going to submit this is really just by copying and pasting this part of it into the tech assignment template. All right? So really just this part. Not even the questions. Just from strategy down, the same template that you used for the last tech assignment, just copy and paste this in there and just answer everything related to it. All right, so you don't have to save this file or anything like that. You just copy and paste it right in. All right, so right click, copy, and then go into yours, the one that you had. You know, so the last name, tech assignments, first name, business, that one. And then just in tech assignment B, paste it right in there. Okay, and then just answer the questions. Well, I'll just leave that there. Anyway, so let me come up with a simple strategy. I'll try to keep it to something that you would never want to do yourself, all right? Because you can't use mine, and I don't want to steal a good one. So what I'll do is I'll do a street bet. $5 on 34, 35, and 36. Most of the time somebody yells out, "That's the one I was going to do," just to bust my chops, but we're all tired, I think. And then I'll do a 19 to 36. Also $5. 19 to 36, this little box here. Also $5. I'm not going to list what the outcomes are because it's anything in the 19 to 36 interval. All right, so any of these values come up and I win. All right. So, you know, if you want to get cute with this, you can use a image editor to modify the diagram, but that's not really required. It's definitely not required. All right. So I would want to be thinking about the different ways that I could win. Right, so that's my strategy. So I've accomplished that goal. The Google Sheet stuff is actually just to simulate the outcomes. So the hard work, quote unquote hard work, is going to happen really just analyzing the expected values. All right, so I need to use my strategy to develop the expected value for this $10 bet. So I got to think about the different ways in which I could win. All right, so I'm going to win in two different ways, really. All right, my possibilities are that I win both the street and the 19 to 36 wager. Another possibility is I lose the street but win. It's another way of winning, but it's not like a good win. Win the 19 to 36. And another possibility is that I just flat out lose.
Sorry, what was the second one?
Lose the street, but win the 19 to 36. And the other one is just lose, because if it's not one of these two scenarios, then I lost. Right? There is no way, because there's complete overlap, there is no way to win the street but lose the 19 to 36 because the street is in that set already. Right? If I win the street, I automatically win the other thing. All right. Now a street bet pays at 11 to 1. $11 to 1, yep. And the 19 to 36 is the even money bet. It pays at 1 to 1. All right. I'll zoom in so it's easier to see. But oh, I zoomed in too much. Yeah, so 19 to 36 bet $5 at 1 to 1. All right, so what I want to think about now is how much money I will win if I win. Now, you might look at this and say, ah, man, this is a pain in the ass. I don't want to do this. And I would say, well, what do you think you're going to be trying to do at the casino? Like when you develop your wager, like you're at the roulette wheel, aren't you going to be thinking about, like, what am I going to win if I win? Like, why would you be betting if you're not going to actually think about it? Now, are you going to set up an expected value chart? Of course not. But you should be considering, all right, well, if this happens, oh man, I'm going to make a ton of money. Dinner's on me tonight if I win, you know? That kind of thing. So, if I win the street bet and the 19 to 36 bet, Control Z. So, it really, I mean, you could do the work on the side, but I'm gonna just jot it down here. So, win both the street. So I'll copy and paste. Bottom line is you don't really have to show me this. I'm going to zoom in. Or not zoom in. I'm going to expand it so we can all see what I'm doing. I wasn't sure why that's centered. All right, if I win the street, I'm getting 5 times the 11. All right, my $5 bet times the payout, which is 11 to 1. If I win the other bet, it's going to be 5 times 1. All right. That's coming from these values. All right. And again, the $5 is the wager, right? So we're talking about a total of $60. So that's what I'm going to win if I win, $60. All right. It's only a $10 bet, so I wasn't expecting to win $16,000. You know, it's something small. All right. Now, winning both the street and the 19 to 36 means that it had to be one of these 3 values. So I have a 3 in 38 chance for that to happen. The table guides you towards what you're supposed to do with this information, so we'll get to that in a minute. Now, if I lose the street but win the 19 to 36, all right, well, in losing the street, I don't have to worry about payout because I lost it. The street bet was a $5 wager. I lost that, so -5. It's just a negative. Sorry, it's a -5. I'll change the color. Still not much better. Well, we'll pretend green is a color used to represent something bad. All right, so I lost my $5 for that, but I won the 19 to 36. So plus, same calculation here. I bet $5 on an event that pays out at 1 to 1. So 5 times 1. And so we get a 0 sum. All right. So that's hedging my bet. Because what's happening here is, yeah, okay, I won the 19 to 36, but it just offset the wager that I placed on the street. So what I'm trying to do is just buy myself time to win the street bet. Right? I'm buying myself time by coming up with a scenario that allows me to just stay in the game without losing money. Because really, this is pretty much half. 19 to 36 is pretty much half of the wheel. So roughly a 50-50 chance that that's going to happen. So pretty good chance that I'm not going to lose any money on a fair number of spins. It prolongs the game. So I'm just buying myself time until I hit. All right. So then I just want to think about, out of the 19 to 36, the number of ways I could lose that street. So that's these three values not coming up, but every other value coming up. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 outcomes. So 15 out of 38 would be the probability of that outcome occurring. Now losing, that means I lost everything. I didn't, not all my money, but all the possible outcomes. I didn't get a street. I didn't get anything in the 19 to 36, so I lost 10 bucks. All right. The probability of that occurring, we get that by counting up the number of ways I could win, 18. Everything else is going to be the ways in which you would lose. So out of the 38, there's 20 ways that you could lose. Kind of, that's the depressing part of it. It's like, whoa, even with this wonderful strategy I just came up with, you still have more than half of the outcomes working against you. All right. So the expected value is just multiplying your x by your p of x. So the 60 is going to get multiplied by the 3. Light blue. Or whatever color that is. So 180 over 38. Don't bother simplifying. 0. 0 times anything is 0. So this one should be negative 200 over 38. And then when you add them up, so this one should be a total. Negative 10 multiplied by 20. So you get negative 20 over 38 as your expected value. All right. Now, that's going to be the same no matter what strategy you select. That final answer. The expected values for roulette are always the same. So that's how you know that you selected an effective strategy. Is if you do your expected value table and you come up with anything other than negative 20 over 38, you did something wrong. All right? Because no matter what the payouts are, the probabilities are, if you did it correctly, then when you multiply and add, your result should always be negative 20 over 38. All right. So I thought I had a winning strategy one time, and I couldn't figure out why I wasn't winning. Then I went back and did the expected values, and I saw it wasn't negative 20 over 38, and I realized I didn't take into account a key ingredient. And I understood very clearly, aside from the fact that I lost 1,500 bucks, that that there was a flaw in my reasoning. So this allows you to really verify that your strategy is a good one. All right. If you don't do this, then you're kind of flying blind, and that's not a good thing. All right. Obviously. So let me bring that back out. All right. So that's my one strategy. I will make sure that this is available because this is actually the assignment page. I'm going to resave it so that this is like the example. So I have the structure all set up. So feel free to modify my example and use your own information. That's perfectly fine. It's not like cheating or anything. I think that's a good idea because now that you see what the structure is supposed to be like, you can say, okay, well, I don't want to do a street bet in the 19 to 36. Maybe I want to do a corner bet, which pays out at 8 to 1, and the evens. You know, so you can play around with it. Just don't do the same thing I did, and you're fine. And don't do the same thing intentionally as somebody else did in the class. All right, because I've seen that happen before. And by the way, if somebody does like 8 and black, and their best friend does 8 and red, that's like doing the same thing. It's got to be sufficiently different, all right? So if one person does 8 and black, then the other person would have to do something like a split bet and black, all right? So don't make it too similar. Otherwise, I'll kick it back to you and I'll make you do it over again, all right? And that's not something you necessarily want. All right, so the random number generator, very easy. This the hard part when you do this, when you finish your expected values, you've finished the hard part. All right, because the summary is going to write itself once you've because the simulation is you playing the game and seeing what the outcomes are. The Google Sheets it's the same for everybody. Right, it's the same approach. So you open a new sheet, title it. It's probably a good idea. So you would say roulette. Sim, perhaps. Anything you want, doesn't matter. All right, I'm going to need the link for this. So it really doesn't matter if you put your name in the title, but when you select share, you're going to put a shareable link. View is fine for this, it doesn't matter, but you could also select it to edit. And then just pop that into your page, so I can see what your simulation looks like. All right, so again, just share, get shareable link, and then just paste that link into the doc. All right. So anyway, done. You're just following this process, right? It involves an add-on, so you have to get the add-on, but it's not like one of those that's going to cause you to receive spam or anything like that. It's a Google add-on. So you select add-on, and I already have it, but you would go to get add-ons and type in random generator, all right, under the search. And then you see it's the first option, all right, so that's easy enough. And it has a picture of dice on it, so it's pretty obvious. Once you've done that, you open it by selecting start. Working. Oh, hilarious. That was for something else. All right. You can see when the last time I used this was for the exact same thing. You're going to select -1 to 36. All right. And the reason why is because -1 is going to represent your double zero. And then everything else will correspond to a value on the board. All right. Because there's no way to represent the double zero using a numerical value. So 0 through 36 will be 0 through 36. This value here, that double zero, we're just going to use a -1 to represent that. All right. So it's set up to good to go. Just don't select unique values, all right, because that would make it a dependent situation. And then select generate, and you'll pretty much have it, all right. But we need to do that 200 times. So working. Okay. So then you might get this pop up. Copy it, Control C, and bring it on down to 200. You're just copying and pasting that one cell. No, you're not. Control Z. Ay, ay, ay. That used to work. Oh. No. You change it on me? You got to go the other way, it looks like. All right, so highlight 200 values, then do the random generator. So add on, random gen. So same process, just highlight the values first. And just hope you don't get that stupid trial period thing. This is like really killing me.
You said not
Correct.
I fell behind, I accidentally checked.
I'll check that in a minute. All right, well, you're not going to have this same problem because you don't have issues with trial periods, but it's only letting me do the points one at a time. It's actually not even letting me do it at all. Might have to do a different one. Power tools, maybe I'll try that one. Randomize, random generator. I'll show you how to do this one in a minute, but I just want to make sure it's going to work. Oh, I did. You're right. I did select unique values. All right. So when you use random generator, that's actually what's going to happen. But another option would be to use the add-on called Power Tools. I'll make the adjustment to the assignment in a few minutes. But Power Tools actually does a lot more. It actually, and I'll show you this next class because it'll do some hypothesis testing for you also, right? So it might be useful for the project. I mean, it definitely would be, all right? But this is how we're going to get our random numbers, all right? The problem is it seems to have included, oh, I didn't change it. Okay, so let me use a technique I like to call the right way. We're typing in -1 to 36 and then select generate. All right. So that's going to populate it with a list of values that exist between -1 and 36. All right. From there, what you're going to do, all the values are highlighted. So what you're going to do is you're going to insert a chart. All right. So insert chart. And the default is a histogram, which is actually what we want. All right, so we want a histogram chart. We just want to make sure it has the right characteristics. All right, so I like the line item dividers, but it's not really necessary. So we go to customize. You can select chart style. You can play around with that if you want. But for histogram, show item dividers. That gives you particular counts. We do want to change the bucket size. All right, so under histogram, change your bucket size. Instead of auto, change it to 1 because we only care about whole number values. All right, what this is going to do is it's going to give us a set of outcomes related to the rolls, the spins around the wheel. All right, now after that, it's up to you. You can title it. You can title the whole shebang if you want. You can title the axes. It really doesn't matter because we're all using it for the same reason. This is going to be pretty much good enough. All right. For grid lines, you could play around with it. There's a lot of things that you can play around with. A legend, change the format and stuff like that. But what this is going to do is it's going to give us a sense of the different outcomes from our study. All right. If you hover over the columns, it'll give you the counts in each category. All right, so it's telling me how many out of instead of me actually counting them up from the raw list, it'll tell me how many of those outcomes were -1. How many were, -1 means 00. How many of them were zeros? How many of them were ones? What I care about were, for example, the street bet, 36, 34, 35, and 36. So the last three entries. All right. And so from this information, you can kind of get a sense of what's going on here. And it's really your personal observations that I really care about, because I'm trying to get you to develop an intuitive understanding of probability, not just the calculations, because the expected value is the calculation. So I'm looking at this and saying, all right, through this simulation, 34, 35, 36, they don't look like they're as frequent as some of the other values. All right, so if I'm going to develop a street bet strategy, I might not want to go with 34, 35, 36 because it doesn't seem like that's happening as frequently as another trio of values, perhaps 20, 21, and 22. Like in this area, a little bit more consistency there. All right, so it's basically your own observations related to the graph. And with that being said, it's kind of my way of saying you really can't screw that part of it up, right? Because I'm asking you to write a summary that addresses the viability of your scenario. So you have an expected value chart here, which you really don't have to reference because all this is kind of a check and balance to make sure that your strategy makes sense. All right, negative 20 over 38. If you get something other than that, you're saying, okay, screwed something up, let me figure it out. Then you run the simulation to see how many times you would have won this bet. All right, so really, like I said, you can't screw it up because you could say, well, the bars for my outcomes are a lot shorter than the bars for the other outcomes. So that means that it occurred less times. So in 200 trials, I'm probably not going to win as much as maybe if I selected a different outcome. Like, just put it in everyday language. I'm not looking for probability speak. All right. So the one modification again is that instead of putting the add-on random generator, you're going to use the add-on power tools. All right. And then select the random generator from there. So power tools. And then from there you'll use a random generator. But that's really the assignment. Okay, so like I said, you could copy and paste it right into the other tech assignment template form. So pop in the summary there also, and then you're in pretty good shape. So, oh, that should come after. All right, so all that's going in here, and that's really it. All right, so again, along with your words, losing them, your link to the Google Sheets. All right. So I would just pop that right here after my table and then include my summary, and then we all get perfect scores on it as long as you complete it.